Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Always great to be back.
Today we're going to be cracking open a book called The Extended Mind.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to dig into this one.
Me too. And I know you've had some time to spend with it.
I have.
What's the big idea here?
Well, the core concept is really fascinating. It's this idea that our minds aren't limited to what's happening inside our skulls.
Okay, so like we're not just brains in
Yes,
jars.
exactly. It's this notion that we actually think with our bodies, our surroundings, and even other people.
So it's like our minds are kind of reaching out into the world and interacting with everything around us.
That's a great way to put it. It's like our thinking process is actually extending beyond the boundaries of our physical brains.
That's a pretty wild idea.
It is. And it has some pretty profound implications for how we understand ourselves and our potential.
Okay, so why is this topic so important? Why should we care about this idea of the expended mind?
Because it completely changes how we see ourselves and our abilities. We often talk about using your head, but this book suggests we need to think outside the brain to unlock our full cognitive potential.
So it's not just about what's going on up here.
Right. It's about understanding how we can tap into these external resources to learn better, make smarter decisions, and even be more creative.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this is such a big deal. So how does the book actually break down this concept of the extended mind?
It dives into four main areas: thinking with sensations, movement, our surroundings, and other people.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
It is. But each section is packed with research anecdotes and practical examples of how these external factors shape our thinking.
Okay, my brain's already buzzing. Let's start with thinking with sensations. What does that even mean?
It all begins with something called interoception.
Interoception. Say that 5 times fast.
Right. It's a mouthful. But basically, it's our awareness of our internal bodily sensations. Things like your heartbeat, your breathing, your gut feelings, all those subtle signals your body is constantly sending you.
So it's like being in tune with your own body's internal chatter.
Exactly. And the book points out that people vary widely in their interoceptive awareness.
So some people are just more tuned in to those signals than others.
Right. Some are super attuned while others are barely aware of them at all.
Is there a way to tell how good someone is at this interoception thing?
There's actually a simple heartbeat detection test that researchers use to measure it.
Oh, really? So you just see if someone can accurately count their own heartbeats?
It's a little more nuanced than that, but essentially, yeah. The book describes this researcher, Vivian Ainley, who was administering this test at the London Science Museum.
Okay, so picture this. A science museum bustling with people.
Right. And this elderly couple comes up to take the test.
Oh, this sounds like a good story.
It is. So the wife, she nails it, perfectly senses her own heartbeat. But the husband, he was totally off, completely clueless.
That's hilarious. It's like he was completely disconnected from his own body.
It really highlights how much individual variation there is in interoceptive awareness.
Okay, so I get that some people are better at sensing their internal signals than others. But how does this actually connect to thinking?
That's where it gets really interesting. Studies have shown that people who are more in tune with their bodily sensations tend to be better decision makers.
What? So being more aware of your body actually helps you make smarter choices.
It seems counterintuitive, but the research supports it. They're also better at regulating their emotions.
Okay, so two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
You make better decisions, and you're more emotionally balanced.
Exactly. The book cites this study where people giving speeches were asked to label their feelings.
Oh, interesting. So like I'm feeling nervous or I'm feeling excited.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just by naming those emotions, they calm down much faster. Their heart rates and stress levels drop significantly.
Wow, that's a great takeaway right there. It's like acknowledging those feelings actually gives you more control over them.
It's a powerful tool, and it goes beyond just managing stress. The book mentions this study by John Coates, who looked at financial traders.
Oh, wow, high stakes.
Definitely. And he found that the traders who were more interoceptively aware, the ones who could accurately sense their own heartbeats, actually earned more money.
That's incredible. So there's a real connection between being in tune with your body and making smarter choices even in high-pressure situations.
It seems that way. The theory is that they were better at reading the market because they were also tuned in to their own internal signals.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, so I'm sold. Interoception is important. But is there anything we can do to improve our awareness in this area? Like, can we actually train ourselves to be more sensitive to those signals?
Absolutely. The book recommends keeping an interoceptive journal.
An interoceptive journal. Okay.
Mm.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's a simple practice where you record important decisions you're facing.
Okay, so like, should I take this new job or should I move to a new city?
Exactly. And then as you're considering your options, you note the internal sensations you're experiencing.
So like, do I feel a knot in my stomach or a sense of excitement in my chest?
Right. And then you reflect on the outcome of your choice and how you felt afterward.
So it's about connecting those gut feelings with the actual result of your decisions.
Exactly. Over time, you start to see patterns and you can learn to trust your intuition more.
That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
So it's not about ignoring our rational minds, it's about integrating those bodily sensations into our decision-making process.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that our bodies have a lot of wisdom to offer if we just learn to listen.
I love that. Okay, so we've explored thinking with sensations. What's next on our journey into the extended mind?
Let's move on to thinking with movement.
Okay, this one sounds intriguing. How can we actually think with our movements?
Well, the book starts this section with this amazing story about Diana Nyad.
Oh, the legendary long-distance swimmer.
The one and only. She's the one who swam from Cuba to Florida without a cage, right?
Right. Incredible feat of endurance.
Absolutely. And the book describes how she participated in this MRI experiment.
Okay, so they're studying her brain while she's swimming.
Not exactly. She actually had to endure these long periods of restricted breathing.
Oh, wow, that sounds intense.
It was. And even inside that MRI machine, she was so competitive, pushing herself to outperform everyone who had come before her.
Talk about mental toughness.
Right. The researchers were studying how she anticipated and responded to stress and how that impacted her cognitive abilities.
So it's like they were looking at the connection between her physical and mental states.
Exactly. And they found that her ability to push through those physical challenges and regulate her stress response was actually connected to her mental sharpness.
So her physical resilience translated into mental resilience.
It seems so. And this connection between movement and thinking goes beyond just extreme athletes like Diana.
Okay, so how does this apply to us regular folks?
The book explores how even everyday movements can influence our thinking. It talks about these activity-permissive settings.
Activity-permissive settings, what are those?
They're essentially environments where people are encouraged to move around while they work or learn.
So instead of the traditional sit still and focus approach.
Right, and it's especially beneficial for people with ADHD as it helps them regulate their attention and focus.
So instead of fighting against that natural urge to move, we should embrace it.
Exactly. Even for those of us without ADHD, fidgeting can be a valuable tool for maintaining alertness and promoting deeper thinking.
That's a relief to hear I'm a chronic fidgeter. I guess it means I'm a deep thinker.
Uh-huh. Could be.
Yeah.
But what about more structured movement like exercise? How does that fit into the picture?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. Does hitting the gym actually make you smarter?
The book delves into different intensities of physical activity and their effects on thinking.
So like low intensity, moderate intensity, and high intensity.
Right, and it turns out there's a sweet spot. It even mentions Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, who's a big advocate for walking and thinking.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him. He's a brilliant guy.
He is. He describes how he has this 4-mile walking route that he takes in Berkeley and how it helps him reach this state of mental alertness where he can think and work most effectively.
So walking is like his secret weapon for boosting his cognitive abilities.
It seems that way. And his personal observations are backed up by research.
Oh, really? So there's science behind this walking and thinking thing.
There is moderate exercise, like brisk walking, has been shown to improve focus, verbal fluency, problem solving, and even memory.
Wow. I need to get myself some walking shoes. It sounds like a miracle cure for a sluggish brain.
It's definitely worth trying. But what about more vigorous exercise? Does that have a different effect?
Yeah, like hitting the gym or going for a run.
Interestingly, the book says that high-intensity activity can actually temporarily hinder some cognitive functions, like working memory, while your body is focused on physical exertion.
So it's like your brain is too busy telling your body what to do to focus on anything else.
It's like your resources are being diverted to fuel that intense physical effort, so timing is key.
Okay, so if I'm facing a challenging mental task, maybe I should skip the HIIT workout and opt for a walk instead.
It's probably a good strategy. The book also explores how the way we move can impact our thinking. It delves into something called the enactment effect.
The enactment effect.
Ah.
Wait, I'm intrigued. What's that all about?
It's this idea that physically acting out what we're trying to learn can drastically improve our memory.
So like if I'm trying to learn a new language, I should be speaking it out loud and gesturing with my hands.
Exactly. It's all about creating this richer memory trace in the brain. Our memories for actions are far more robust than our memories for words. So by connecting movement to the information we want to remember, we're tapping into a more powerful memory system.
So it's like we're embedding the information in our bodies as well as our minds.
Exactly. The book gives the example of actors who famously have to memorize reams of lines.
Right. Talk about a memory challenge.
They often rely on something called blocking, which is planning out all their physical movements on stage.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about memorizing the words. It's about connecting those words to specific actions and location.
Exactly. And that makes the memory much stronger.
That makes so much sense. It's like creating a multi-sensory experience that really locks that information in. Are there any other examples of this enactment effect in action?
The book highlights this really cool program called Moved by Reading.
Moved by reading. I like the sound of that. Tell me more.
It was developed by a researcher named Arthur Glenberg, and it teaches children to physically act out the stories they're reading.
That's brilliant. It makes learning so much more engaging.
Exactly. It helps kids connect with the material on a deeper level, and the results are impressive. The program has been shown to significantly improve reading comprehension.
That's amazing. So it's not just about making learning more fun, it's about making it more effective.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that this principle applies to all sorts of learning. Even in a science class, students benefit more from physically participating in experiments rather than just passively observing.
So it's about making those abstract concepts concrete and tangible through movement.
Precisely. It's about embodying the knowledge.
This whole concept of thinking with movement is so eye-opening. I never realized how much our physical actions could influence our cognitive processes.
And the book takes it even further, talking about self-referential movements, where we use our bodies as instruments of exploration to understand abstract ideas.
Okay, that sounds pretty out there. Can you give me an example?
One of the most famous examples is Albert Einstein, who imagined himself riding on a beam of light while developing his theory of relativity.
Wow, so even Einstein, a brilliant mind known for his theoretical work, relied on his body to help him grasp these complex concepts.
He emphasized that his thinking wasn't purely mathematical. It involved visual and even muscular elements.
That's incredible. It really challenges the notion that intellectual pursuits are purely mental exercises.
Exactly. The extended mind shows how our bodies can be powerful tools for thinking and understanding.
Okay, so we've seen how tuning into our bodies and incorporating movement can influence our thinking. Now let's zoom out even further and consider how the spaces we inhabit shape our minds.
That's a great transition because the next section of the book is all about thinking with our surroundings, and it kicks off with the story of Jackson Pollock.
Oh, the famous drip painter. What does he have to do with our surroundings?
Well, he was living in New York City, struggling with his mental health, when he and his wife, Lee Krasner, decided to move to the east end of Long Island.
Interesting. So was this a case of a change is as good as a rest?
More than that, he found the peace and natural beauty of Long Island incredibly soothing and inspiring. It was there that he created some of his most iconic drip paintings.
So his environment actually fueled his creativity.
Exactly. The book uses this story to illustrate how our surroundings can profoundly impact our mental state and creative output.
It's like our environment becomes an extension of our mind, shaping the way we think and feel. But is this just a nice anecdote, or is there actual science behind this?
There's a whole field of research dedicated to this. The book delves into the concept of biophilic design.
Biophilic design. What's that?
It's essentially the idea of incorporating natural elements into our built spaces to improve our well-being and cognitive function.
So like bringing the outdoors indoors.
In a way, it can be as simple as adding some potted plants, incorporating natural materials like wood and stone, or even just having a window with a view of greenery.
I've definitely noticed that spending time in nature helps me feel more grounded and clear-headed.
Yeah.
Are we talking about turning our offices into jungles, though?
Not necessarily. It can be much more subtle than that. Studies have shown that even these small changes can have a significant impact.
Like how significant are we talking?
The book mentions a study where people who spent just 5 minutes in a biophilic environment experienced decreased blood pressure, improved short-term memory, and an increase in positive emotions.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. Just 5 minutes.
It's amazing what a little bit of nature can do. But what about the flip side? What about the impact of those sterile, artificial environments we often find ourselves in?
Yeah, those places that feel kind of soulless.
The book explores this too, highlighting the potential downsides of these spaces. It even has a name for them: Non-places.
Non-places, what are those?
They're those generic, uninspiring spaces that lack any sense of history, identity, or meaning.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean, like sterile airport terminals, bland corporate offices, or those soul-crushing waiting areas you find in some government buildings.
Exactly. And the book argues that these non-places can actually hinder our thinking and creativity because they offer our minds so little to engage with.
So it's not just about aesthetics. It's about creating environments that actually support our cognitive and emotional well-being.
Exactly. And this isn't just theoretical. The book cites a study where researchers observed people's behavior in different settings.
Oh, interesting. Like a real-world experiment.
Exactly. And they found that the characteristics of the environment had a far greater influence on people's actions than their individual personalities or predispositions.
Wow. So it's like the space itself was shaping their behavior.
That's what the research suggests. And that's why the book encourages us to be more mindful of the spaces we inhabit.
So we should be paying more attention to how our surroundings are affecting us.
Exactly. And it even delves into the architecture of specific buildings and how they can either enhance or hinder our thinking.
Okay, so are there any particular buildings that stand out in the book?
One fascinating example is the Salk Institute in La Jolla, California.
Oh, I've seen pictures of that. It's that striking concrete building perched on the cliffs overlooking the Pacific Ocean, right?
That's the one. It was designed by the renowned architect Louis Kahn.
Okay, so what makes this building so special in terms of thinking?
Well, Kahn specifically designed the building to optimize the thinking of the scientists who would work there.
How did he do that? Did he like embed subliminal messages in the walls?
Uh-huh. Nothing so sneaky. He incorporated natural light throughout the building, created wide open spaces in the labs to encourage collaboration, and even gave each scientist a private study with a view of the Pacific Ocean.
Wow, so it's like the building itself is designed to inspire contemplation and reflection.
Exactly. And the researchers who work there rave about how the building itself seems to facilitate their thinking.
That's incredible. It's like the building itself becomes a kind of cognitive enhancement tool.
It's a powerful example of how architecture can be used to extend our minds and support our intellectual pursuits. On the flip side, the book also criticizes some modern architectural trends, like open-plan offices.
I have to admit, I'm not a huge fan of open plan offices. It always feels like I'm battling distractions.
The book argues that while open-plan offices can promote collaboration, they can also be incredibly distracting, especially for tasks requiring deep concentration.
Yeah, that constant noise and movement. It's like trying to work in a beehive.
Exactly. That lack of privacy can be detrimental to both productivity and creativity.
So what's the alternative? Are we all going back to cubicles?
Not necessarily. The book suggests that we need a balance of open spaces for collaboration and private spaces for focused work.
So like a mix of open areas for brainstorming and teamwork, and then quiet rooms for individual work.
Exactly. And it introduces this concept of the studiolo, which was this small private room in Renaissance Italy where scholars and artists would retreat to study, write, and create.
That sounds heavenly. A quiet space to escape the chaos and really delve into your work.
Exactly. It's a space that offers a sense of ownership, control, and privacy, allowing you to fully immerse yourself in your work without distractions.
I think we could all use a little bit of that in our lives.
I agree. It's about creating those spaces that support our cognitive and emotional well-being. So we've talked about the impact of nature, the downsides of non-places, and the benefits of spaces that offer privacy and a sense of ownership. What else does the book cover in this section on thinking with our surroundings?
Yeah, what other environmental factors can influence our thinking?
It also delves into the power of physical interaction with information, arguing that it can actually reduce cognitive load and enhance understanding.
Okay, I'm not sure I follow. Can you elaborate on that?
Think about the way we interact with information on a small screen versus a large display or multiple monitors.
Okay, so like reading an article on my phone versus reading it on my laptop.
Exactly. When we're confined to a small screen, we have to hold a mental map of all that information in our heads.
Right. It's like trying to navigate a complex city using only a tiny map.
That's a great analogy. You can only see a small section at a time, and it's easy to get lost. But with larger displays or multiple monitors, we can see more information at once, reducing the need for all that mental juggling.
So it's like having a bigger mental workspace.
Exactly. This allows for a more intuitive and spatial understanding of the material.
So it's not just about the speed of the technology. It's about how that technology interacts with our human cognitive capabilities.
Precisely. And this principle extends beyond screens. The book also discusses the benefits of physical tools like whiteboards, sticky notes, and even just pen and paper.
Okay, so those low-tech tools still have their place.
Absolutely. These tools allow us to externalize our thoughts and ideas, making them more concrete and manipulable.
I'm a huge fan of whiteboards and sticky notes. There's something about getting those ideas out of my head and into the physical world that just helps me see them more clearly.
The book highlights how this process of externalization can actually spark new insights and creative breakthroughs.
It's like those physical objects become extensions of our thought processes.
Exactly. And it even cites Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist, who famously used to scribble equations all over his blackboard.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. He was a real character.
He was. When a colleague pointed out that the real work was happening in his head, Feynman insisted that he was actually thinking on the paper.
So he didn't see it as just a way to record his thoughts? The physical act of writing and manipulating those equations was an integral part of his thought process.
That's how he described it. It's a great example of how we can interact with our surroundings to augment our cognitive abilities.
This whole conversation is making me rethink the way I design my workspace. I might need to invest in a bigger whiteboard.
It might be worth it. And here's another example of this principle in action: the method of loci, an ancient memory technique.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. It's about creating a memory palace in your mind, right?
Exactly. It uses spatial memory to enhance recall.
So you imagine a familiar location like your house, and you mentally place the items you want to remember in specific spots throughout that location.
Right. And then when you need to recall the information, you just take a mental walk through your memory palace and retrieve those items from their designated spots.
That's so clever. It's like creating a physical map for your memories. Does it really work, though?
The book mentions a study where people who received training in the method of loci were able to more than double their memory capacity.
Wow, that's impressive. So we can actually train our brains to be more spatially aware.
It seems that way. The method of loci is a powerful demonstration of how we can harness our spatial cognition to enhance our thinking.
Okay, so we've seen how our physical spaces and our interactions with information can shape our thinking. But I'm really excited to dive into what I think is the most powerful extension of all thinking with other people.
Me too. That section of the book is all about the power of collective intelligence and how we can tap into the minds of others to achieve incredible things.
That's the one I've been most looking forward to.
Thanks.
I'm always fascinated by the dynamics of group thinking and how we can leverage our collective wisdom to solve problems and make better decisions. But before we jump into that, let's take a quick break.
That's good. I need to refill my coffee anyway.
We'll be right back after a short break to explore the fascinating world of thinking with other people. All right, so we're back and ready to dive into one of the most fascinating aspects of the extended mind, which is thinking with other people.
It's a game changer for sure.
I mean, think about it. Our entire history as a species has been shaped by our ability to cooperate and collaborate.
Right, from hunting and gathering in groups to building complex societies, our survival has always depended on our ability to think together.
And in today's world, with all the challenges we're facing, it seems like collective intelligence is more important than ever.
Absolutely. We need to be able to pool our knowledge, share our perspectives, and work together to find solutions to complex problems.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this thinking with other people thing actually works. The book starts this section with a really cool story about Satindranath Bose, an Indian physicist.
Oh, yeah, this is a great story. He was working in relative isolation in India and made a groundbreaking discovery about the nature of light.
So he's like this unsung hero of physics.
Kind of, but he was eager to share his findings with the world, so he decided to reach out to the most famous physicist of the time.
Let me guess, Albert Einstein.
You got it. He sent Einstein a letter along with his paper explaining his discovery and asking Einstein to help get it published.
Wow, that's bold. I wonder what Einstein thought.
Well, Einstein was incredibly impressed. He saw that Bose had solved a problem that he himself had been wrestling with for years.
So even Einstein, a brilliant mind known for his solitary contemplation, recognized the value of collaboration.
Exactly. He even wrote a commentary on Bose's paper, praising it as a major step forward.
That's amazing. It shows that even the greatest minds can benefit from working with others.
And this story sets the stage for the book's exploration of the group mind. It challenges that old view of crowds as irrational and dangerous and presents a more nuanced understanding of how groups can actually be smarter than individuals.
Okay, I have to admit I've always been a bit skeptical of that wisdom of the crowd. idea.
Mhm.
I mean, haven't you ever been in a group project where you felt like you were doing all the work while everyone else just slacked off?
Haha, yeah, I think we've all been there. But the book argues that when groups are structured and facilitated effectively, they can achieve incredible things.
So it's not just about throwing a bunch of people together and hoping for the best. There's an art to creating a truly intelligent group.
Exactly. And it starts with understanding the key ingredients for effective group thinking.
Okay, so what are those ingredients? What makes a group truly smart?
The book highlights several factors, but I think the most important ones are shared goals, clear communication, psychological safety, and a diversity of perspectives.
Okay, let's unpack those a bit, starting with shared goals.
Yeah.
Why are those so crucial for group success?
It's pretty simple. If everyone is rowing in different directions, the boat's not going to get anywhere.
Right. It's like that old saying, teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly. For a group to be truly effective, everyone needs to be aligned on the overall objective and understand how their individual contributions fit into the bigger picture.
So it's about creating that sense of shared purpose and making sure everyone feels like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
Exactly. And that brings us to the next essential ingredient, clear communication.
Okay, why is communication so important in a group setting?
Because without open and honest communication, misunderstandings can fester, conflicts can arise, and progress can grind to a halt.
It's like that game of telephone where the message gets distorted as it's passed from person to person.
Exactly. Effective groups foster a culture of transparency, where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas, asking questions, and voicing concerns.
So it's about creating a space where everyone feels heard and respected.
Right. And that ties into the next factor, psychological safety.
Psychological safety. What does that mean in the context of group thinking?
It's about creating an environment where people feel safe to take risks, express their opinions, and make mistakes without fear of judgment or punishment.
So it's like creating a space where it's okay to be vulnerable and admit that you don't have all the answers.
Exactly. When people feel psychologically safe, they're more likely to contribute their unique perspectives, challenge assumptions, and think outside the box.
That makes so much sense. I've definitely been in groups where I felt like I had to hold back my ideas for fear of looking stupid or being criticized.
It's a common dynamic, unfortunately. But when you have that psychological safety, it unlocks so much creative potential.
And that leads us to the final and perhaps most crucial ingredient, a diversity of perspectives.
It's essential for avoiding groupthink and coming up with truly innovative solutions.
Right, because if everyone in the group has the same background, same experiences, and the same way of thinking, they're likely to just reinforce each other's biases.
Exactly. But when you bring together people with different perspectives, it challenges those biases and forces the group to consider a wider range of possibilities.
So it's about embracing those different viewpoints, even if they're uncomfortable or challenging.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that those differences are actually a strength, not a weakness.
This is all making me think about my own experiences with teamwork. I've definitely been in both highly effective groups and ones that felt like a complete waste of time.
We've all been there.
And it seems like these factors we've been talking about, shared
Yeah.
goals, clear communication, psychological safety, and diversity, they're really the key ingredients for unlocking that collective intelligence.
I agree. Those are the foundations of a truly smart group.
Okay, so we've talked about the conditions that foster effective group thinking. But what about the specific mechanisms by which groups actually think together? You mentioned shared attention synchrony and transactive memory systems earlier. Can you delve into those a bit more?
Of course. Let's start with shared attention, which is that ability to focus on the same thing at the same time.
So like a group of musicians playing a piece of music together.
Exactly. Or a basketball team coordinating their movements on the court. It's about creating a shared mental space where everyone is on the same page.
And research has shown that this shared attention is crucial for effective problem solving, right?
Absolutely. The more moments of joint attention a team has, the more successful they tend to be.
That's fascinating. It makes me wonder if some teams are just naturally better at this than others. Or is it a skill that can be developed?
The book suggests that it's definitely a skill that can be learned and improved with practice.
So like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Exactly. It's about developing that sensitivity to each other's cues and learning to anticipate each other's needs.
Okay, so that's shared attention. What about synchrony?
Synchrony is all about coordinated movements and shared experiences.
So like dancing together, singing together,
Yeah.
or even just walking in step.
Exactly. And the book describes how even these simple acts of synchrony can have powerful effects on group cohesion and performance.
I can see how that would create a sense of unity and shared purpose. But does it actually translate into tangible benefits?
Research has shown that it does. Synchrony strengthens social bonds, improves communication, enhances empathy, and boosts cooperation within a group.
That's amazing. It's like those coordinated movements create a kind of social glue that binds people together.
Exactly. And it's not just about feeling good, it actually translates into better performance.
Wow, so there's a real scientific basis for this idea of moving together to think together.
There is. The
Hmm.
book even suggests that companies could use synchrony as a team building tool.
Oh, that's interesting. So like incorporating activities like dancing or drumming into team building workshops.
Exactly. It's a way to foster that sense of connection and shared rhythm.
I love that. It's a much more engaging and impactful approach than those typical trust fall exercises.
Okay, so we've covered shared attention and synchrony. Now let's tackle transactive memory systems.
This one's a bit more of a head scratcher for me. Can you break it down for me?
Think of it like this. Imagine you have a team working on a complex project. Instead of everyone trying to remember every single detail, they naturally distribute the knowledge among themselves.
So it's like each person becomes the expert on a particular aspect of the project.
Exactly. And they become each other's external memory banks, relying on each other's expertise to navigate the complexities of the task.
Ah, that makes sense. So it's like creating a network of specialized knowledge that the group can access collectively.
Exactly. And the book argues that this is a much more efficient and resilient approach to knowledge management than everyone trying to store everything in their own heads.
It's like crowdsourcing your memory.
In a way.
Yeah.
And it's especially important in today's world where we're bombarded with information from all directions.
Right? It's impossible to keep track of everything. So it makes sense to rely on each other's strengths and create a shared mental database.
Exactly. And the book provides some great tips for intentionally cultivating these transactive memory systems within teams.
Oh, like what?
One key strategy is to be explicit about who has expertise in which areas. You can create a knowledge map or a shared document that outlines everyone's strengths and areas of specialization.
So it's like creating a directory of who to go to for what.
Exactly. And it can also help foster a culture of mutual respect and collaboration where people feel comfortable asking for help and sharing their knowledge with others.
So it's not just about efficiency. It's also about building trust and strengthening relationships within the team.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together and that we can achieve more when we leverage each other's strengths.
This is all so fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how this concept of thinking with other people can really revolutionize the way we approach teamwork and collaboration.
It can. It's about moving beyond those individualistic notions of intelligence and recognizing the power of collective wisdom.
And in the book provides some amazing examples of this collective intelligence in action, right?
It does. It highlights everything from scientific breakthroughs to social movements to community-driven initiatives. All of these examples demonstrate how groups of people working together can accomplish extraordinary things.
It's inspiring to think about all the possibilities that open up when we start to think of ourselves as part of a larger collective mind.
And that's really the beauty of the extended mind. It challenges us to expand our understanding of intelligence and to embrace the power of collaboration and connection.
Well said. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the importance of shared goals, clear communication, psychological safety, and diversity. And we've explored these fascinating mechanisms of collective intelligence like shared attention synchrony and transactive memory systems. But there's still so much more to unpack.
I know, right? This book is full of mind-blowing insights.
So let's take a deep breath and dive into the next layer of thinking with other people.
I'm ready. What's next on our agenda?
Let's talk about the power of teaching and how it can actually deepen our own understanding.
Ah, yes, the protege effect. It's a fascinating phenomenon.
I've definitely experienced this myself. When I have to explain something to someone else, it forces me to really think it through and make sure I understand it deeply.
Exactly. And the book dives into the research behind this, showing how teaching others actually leads to better learning and retention for the teacher.
So it's not just about helping someone else learn, it's about deepening our own understanding as well.
Precisely. And it ties into this idea that our minds are not these isolated entities, but rather they're constantly interacting with and shaping each other.
It's like our minds are these interconnected networks,
Yeah,
and the act of teaching strengthens those connections.
that's a great way to put it. And the book also challenges this traditional view of reason as a solitary pursuit.
Oh, yeah. I remember you mentioning the argumentative theory of reason. What's that all about again?
It argues that reason actually evolved as a social tool for persuasion and debate. We're wired to argue, to present our case, and to challenge opposing viewpoints.
I can definitely relate to that. I love a good debate.
And the book suggests that this process of argumentation is actually essential for reaching sound judgments and avoiding those pesky cognitive biases.
So it's not about winning the argument. It's about using that back and forth to refine our thinking and arrive at a more nuanced understanding.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that truth often emerges from the clash of ideas.
That's a powerful concept. It makes me think of how scientific progress often happens through a process of debate and peer review.
That's a great example. Scientists present their findings, their colleagues challenge those findings, and through this back and forth, a more accurate and complete picture of reality emerges.
It's like a collective process of refining our understanding.
Exactly. And this brings us to the final piece of the thinking with other people puzzle storytelling.
Ah, storytelling.
Mm.
I love a good story. What's the connection to the extended mind?
The book argues that storytelling is a powerful way to share knowledge and experiences, creating a collective pool of wisdom that individuals can draw upon.
It's like weaving together individual threads of experience into a rich tapestry of shared understanding.
That's beautifully put. And the book highlights how storytelling is especially crucial in fields where practitioners face a wide range of unpredictable situations like medicine or emergency response.
Because by sharing their stories, professionals can learn from each other's experiences and be better prepared for whatever challenges they might face.
Exactly. It's like building a collective memory bank of best practices and lessons learned.
So it's not just about entertainment. It's about using stories to transmit knowledge and build expertise.
Precisely. And the book provides some great examples of this in action, like the medical transport teams who share their stories to learn from each other's successes and failures.
It's a powerful reminder that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. We can tap into this collective wisdom to make better decisions and avoid repeating past mistakes.
And it highlights the importance of creating cultures where storytelling is valued and encouraged.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
We've talked about the protege effect, the argumentative theory of reason, and the power of storytelling. All of these concepts point to the incredible potential of thinking with other people.
And it's not just about theoretical potential. The book also provides some compelling real-world examples of how this collective intelligence can be harnessed to achieve extraordinary things.
Oh yeah, you were about to tell me a story about a U.S. Navy ship that faced a near-catastrophic situation.
Writing. This is the story of Edwin Hutchins' study of the USS Palau and how the crew was able to avert disaster by thinking together as a single unified intelligence.
Right, I'm all ears. This sounds intense.
It was. The ship was sailing off the coast of California when its steering failed, leaving it drifting dangerously close to a crowded harbor.
Oh, wow. Talk about a high-pressure situation.
It was, and the crew had to think fast and work together seamlessly to avoid a major collision.
So what did they do? How did they manage to avert disaster?
Hutchins was on board observing the crew as part of a research project, and he was blown away by their response. They immediately sprang into action, communicating clearly, sharing information, and coordinating their efforts like a well-oiled machine.
It's amazing how in moments of crisis, people can come together and achieve incredible things.
It's like all those individual minds become synchronized into a single, powerful force.
So it wasn't just about individual brilliance, it was about the collective intelligence of the group.
Exactly. Hutchins concluded that the crew's success wasn't just due to their individual skills and knowledge, but to the emergent intelligence of the group as a whole.
So they were literally thinking as one.
In a way, and it's a powerful example of how the extended mind can work in real-world, high-stakes situations.
This story gives me chills.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the incredible power of human collaboration.
It really is. And it highlights the importance of investing in team training, developing shared mental models, and fostering a culture of open communication and collaboration.
It's about creating the conditions where these distributed cognitive systems can flourish.
Exactly. And when they do, the results can be truly remarkable.
So we've explored the conditions that foster effective group thinking. We've delved into the mechanisms of collective intelligence, and we've seen how this power can be harnessed to solve complex problems and even avert disaster.
It's been quite a journey through the landscape of the extended mind.
It has.
Yeah.
And it's made me realize that we're all capable of so much more when we tap into the power of thinking together.
That's the beauty of it. It's not just about individual brilliance, it's about recognizing the power of connection and collaboration.
Well said. The extended mind has definitely given me a whole new perspective on the nature of intelligence and the potential of human collaboration.
I'm glad to hear that. It's a book that has the power to change the way we see the world and our place in it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into thinking with other people.
Hmm.
But I think it's important to take a step back and distill the key takeaways for our listeners.
I agree. What's the one big message we want people to walk away with?
If you could sum up the essence of thinking with other people in a few sentences, what would you say?
I would say that our minds are not limited to the boundaries of our skulls. We can extend our cognitive abilities by tapping into the power of collective intelligence. By working together, sharing our knowledge and perspectives, and creating a culture of collaboration, we can achieve extraordinary things.
Beautifully put. And it's not just about achieving great things in the world, it's also about enhancing our own individual lives.
Absolutely. By connecting with others, learning from their experiences, and engaging in meaningful conversations, we can expand our minds, enrich our lives, and make better decisions.
This has been such an inspiring and thought-provoking conversation. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of what it means to be human.
Me too. It's a reminder that we're not isolated individuals. We're part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Mm.
And when we tap into that collective power, we can achieve amazing things.
Well said. Okay, so before we wrap things up, I want to make sure we leave our listeners with some practical takeaways. Some things they can do to start thinking with other people more effectively in their own lives.
Great idea. What are some key actions people can take?
Well, first of all, be intentional about the company you keep. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, inspire you, and support your growth.
I love that. It's about creating a personal board of advisors who can offer different perspectives and help you see the world in new ways.
And don't be afraid to reach out to people who are different from you. People with different backgrounds, different experiences, and different ways of thinking.
Exactly. Diversity is key to innovation and growth.
And when you're working on a project or facing a challenge, don't try to do it all alone. Embrace collaboration and tap into the collective wisdom of your team.
Create those shared goals, foster clear communication, and build that psychological safety that allows everyone to contribute their best ideas.
And remember to celebrate those successes together. Recognizing and appreciating each other's contributions is essential for building a strong and cohesive team.
I couldn't agree more. It's about creating a culture of shared success where everyone feels valued and appreciated.
And finally, don't underestimate the power of storytelling. Share your experiences. Listen to the stories of others and tap into that collective wisdom that's been passed down through generations.
Storytelling is a powerful tool for connecting with others, building empathy, and transmitting knowledge.
This has been such an incredible conversation. I feel like my mind has been stretched in all sorts of new directions.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
And to all of you listening out there, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into thinking with other people. Remember, your mind is not limited to what's happening inside your head.
Tap into the power of the extended mind and see what amazing things you can achieve together.
Until next time, keep those minds extended. You know, it's funny, I was just thinking about how much this whole idea of the extended mind has already started to change the way I see the world.
Oh, really? In what way?
Well, for example, when I'm walking down the street now, I'm more aware of the buildings, the trees, the people around me.
That's great. It's like you're starting to see those things as extensions of your own mind.
Exactly. And I'm more conscious of how those things might be influencing my thoughts, my feelings, my behavior.
It's like becoming more attuned to the subtle ways in which our environment is constantly shaping us.
And it's not just about the physical environment. That's also about the people we surround ourselves with.
Absolutely. The people we interact with, the conversations we have, the stories we share, all of those things become part of our extended minds.
It makes you realize how important it is to choose your company wisely.
It's about building those relationships that nourish and challenge us intellectually, emotionally, creatively.
Well, we've covered a lot of fascinating territory in this deep dive into the extended mind.
We have. It's a book that really makes you think.
It does. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that our minds are much more expansive and interconnected than we often realize.
That's the beauty of it. It's this idea that we're not limited to what's going on inside our own heads.
Right. We can extend our cognitive abilities by tapping into all these amazing resources outside ourselves.
Our bodies, our surroundings, our tools, our relationships.
Like a whole new way of looking at intelligence and creativity.
And it opens up so many possibilities for how we can live, learn, and work more effectively.
So as we wrap up this conversation, what's the one message you hope our listeners will take away from this deep dive?
I hope they'll remember that their minds are not limited to the boundaries of their skulls.
That we're all part of this interconnected web of mind.
Exactly. And that by tapping into the power of the extended mind, we can achieve incredible things both individually and collectively.
Well said. Okay, so before we sign off, I want to make sure we leave our listeners with some actionable advice, some concrete steps they can take to start thinking outside the brain.
Great idea.
Yeah.
What are some key tips?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to cultivate that awareness of your surroundings.
Right. Notice how different environments make you feel and how they might be influencing your thinking.
Don't be afraid to experiment with different spaces. Find those places that inspire you, that energize you, that help you focus.
Whether it's a cozy coffee shop, a bustling library, or a peaceful park,
And speaking of nature, make sure you're getting enough of it.
spending time in nature has been shown to have all sorts of cognitive and emotional benefits.
So get outside, take a walk in the woods, or just sit under a tree for a while.
It's a great way to recharge your batteries and clear your head.
And don't forget about the power of movement.
Right. Incorporate more movement into your day, whether it's walking, dancing, yoga, or even just fidgeting.
It's amazing how much our physical actions can influence our mental states.
And when it comes to learning and problem solving, don't be afraid to get hands-on. Use those whiteboards, those sticky notes, those physical models.
It's about externalizing those thoughts and ideas and interacting with them in a more tangible way.
And of course, we can't forget about the most powerful extension of all other people.
Right? Surround yourself with people who challenge you, inspire you, and support your growth.
And don't be afraid to reach out to people who are different from you. People with different backgrounds, different experiences, different perspectives.
It's those diverse perspectives that lead to innovation and breakthrough thinking.
And remember to cultivate those shared goals, those clear communication channels, and that sense of psychological safety that allows everyone to contribute their best.
Because when a group of people comes together with a shared purpose and a willingness to collaborate, amazing things can happen.
We've seen that throughout history, and we're seeing it today in all sorts of fields, from science and technology to art and activism.
The extended mind is a powerful reminder that we're not alone in this journey.
We're all part of something much bigger than ourselves.
And by tapping into the power of the extended mind, we can achieve incredible things.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
The pleasure was all mine. And all of our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the extended mind. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation.
Until next time, keep those minds extended.
And remember, it's not just about using your head. It's about thinking outside the brain.